Hello everyone, I'm Zibboyeye, and recently I watched The Backrooms, and I wanted to talk about it. Yeah, I know, I'm talking about a movie that came out in the same year, a bit of a rare occasion on this channel. But I liked the movie, and more importantly, I found the context surrounding it interesting as well, arguably, perhaps even more so. And even though I'd love to get into that right away, I should probably touch upon my thoughts on the film, seeing as this is predominantly a review channel. So let's talk about that before I get deep into the ramble, which is seeking a point to this video. My overall qualitative opinion is it starts as you'd expect, but pretty good, and then the latter half throws in more of the surprises and becomes great. I liked the movie. This is a weird case of something becoming mainstream, and then I'm actually interested in it. I wasn't too much into the Backrooms phenomenon as it was on the internet. Even though I understood the appeal of liminal spaces, I didn't get into the Backrooms outside of the finding its aesthetics unnerving, which its entity online was little more than to me. And that's exactly it. It was mostly just a concept as I see it online, but the movie elevates that. It takes that concept and makes it a premise for a greater narrative, with characters and arcs. That's not to discredit any of the work done for it online though, especially considering they reached into that for this movie by getting Kane Parsons to direct, who cut his teeth on little Blender Backrooms projects. He definitely knows what makes the Backrooms scary, and the prime example I think that showcases this is when it goes into a found footage cinematography to showcase the Backrooms. Many other movies I think would have more coverage, would cut back to a more normal camera before cutting back to the found footage, but instead it sticks to that little VH camera perspective for the duration of this one scene in the middle of the movie. And to cut away from that would have taken away from the lack of safety that is found footage. But also, it's a great homage to what started the Backrooms. But what I think the movie does best is what it doesn't do, which is spill the beans. One of the things online is that I remember reading stuff like, oh, the Backrooms in the online fandom lore, oh, on level 97 there's this monster which da-da-da-da, and the rooms look like da-da-da-da. And that just ruins the appeal of the Backrooms for me, which says a lot because I didn't find it too appealing back then anyway. But the creep factor of the Backrooms is the fear of the unknown. You don't know what's in there, you want to imagine what could be in there, and by fans dotting out, itemizing each level and what each monster is on there, it just takes that away from you. But the movie preserves that mystery. You piece together early on that Clark, the main character, isn't the first one to take a dive in this dimension. It's had explorers before, and I was worried that the movie would show one of them at the end and do a big exposition drop, which thankfully it didn't do. The creepy, mysterious factor is preserved, at least until the sequel. Which brings us to the context outside the movie. One of the things that I loved seeing was how this was positioned as a sort of David to the Goliath that was Star Wars The Mandalorian, and just like the story, David won. One of the things many people saw this to be a sign of was the death of franchise movies, which I don't concur with that sentiment. I'm going to get into thoughts that resemble what Serial at Midnight said on the film. You should check out his video, by the way, but to delve into my thoughts on it, I don't see this as the death of franchise movies, but rather an evolution. And what I'm going to cite is what I said earlier, the Backrooms as an aesthetic. This has an aesthetic. The Backrooms, when you say it, it brings to mind certain imagery, feelings, maybe even sounds. I mean, it's often recognized as found footage on YouTube, and that is incorporated into the movie. It's very on brand. But without the movie, the Backrooms was branding without an official brand. Just as Star Wars evokes a certain idea and that's a drive to see that movie, the Backrooms had this pre-established stimuli, this pre-established evocation in one's mind that drives people to see that movie. So I don't see this as the death of franchise movies because it validates the mentality that drives producers to produce franchise movies, that it's recognizable, that it has a brand. And my source? Just look at Hollywood right now. They're grabbing up any internet media they can like it's harvest season. Even I got offered a movie deal. It didn't work out. I wanted Brad Pitt, they wanted The Rock, and I had too much integrity to bend. But fat Hollywood contracts aside, that's my interpretation of events. This isn't the death of franchises, it's just the next evolution. Even though I will give it to you that Obsession's success can be used as actual evidence that things are changing. I saw a lot of people tie this up with Obsession to prove that, but I think this is a pretty different scenario than Obsession. Also, when I considered events, there's more overlap between the Backrooms and Star Wars than I had previously mentioned. Or maybe not overlap, but like a light beam towards a mirror. They look similar, but they go in opposite directions. What I'm gonna talk about now is inspired by a documentary that I had watched a couple of months ago, The People vs. George Lucas. And what they talk about is how Star Wars is so culturally ingrained in media. About how much of a grand slam the movie was, and how fans wanted more of it, even playing with toys and making fan films. There's a sort of participatory culture that is associated with Star Wars. So the movie came out, fans adored it, and fans wanted to participate in that world and make their own things. Now let's look at the Backrooms. It started online as, I guess, a few pictures, but people started adding lore and making little fan projects, and that made a fandom and knowledge of this property, so to speak, and now we have a movie. It started with participatory culture, and now we have a movie. It's the exact opposite of what happened with Star Wars. So I find it a little poetically fitting that the Backrooms movie went up against Star Wars, considering that their inception directly oppose each other. And that brings into question, what is the Backrooms? I mean, we know what Star Wars is. We can point to a Star Wars movie or even a show and say, yep, that's Star Wars. Even if you hate it, you can't say it's not Star Wars. What is the Backrooms? We have this new movie declaratively titled The Backrooms, but such a thing existed even before that in fandom. It's sort of like an urban legend, like a modern urban legend. But unlike the boogeyman or something, there is such specific imagery and concepts associated with the Backrooms that it's hard not to see it as a brand. Another thing The People vs. George Lucas discusses is the iron fist with which Lucas has definitive control over Star Wars. He can say, if you can watch this version of the movie with this cut, and the documentary questions, does he have the right to do it? Star Wars is such a big cultural thing, it's referenced throughout so many media, it's ubiquitous. I'm your father, you don't even have to question it when someone says it. It's that ingrained in culture that some of the interviewees argued that as a society, they own Star Wars more than the corporation. And it makes me wonder how that will impact the Backrooms, seeing as once again, it's the opposite. There was this public forum of people who could integrate lore and create new things which are seen, yeah, that's the Backrooms, but now what will become of the Backrooms now that there's a more definitive ownership to it? Or is there a definitive ownership to it? I know there's been some hubbub with the copyright, which seems to have been cleared out now, but that does beg the question, does someone own the Backrooms? has something changed with it now that there is an official corporation and product to the brand? I had said modern urban legend, but the Backrooms is more specific than, let's say, the Boogeyman. And it reminds me of, like, Alice in Wonderland, which you may think is really specific. There are specific imagery associated with Alice in Wonderland, but it is referenced so often in other lines of media, it makes you think, yeah, I guess society does just own that concept. Free reign to whatever writer wants to use that world or reference to it. And reference is an apt word because little references to other media and fourth wall breaks has become commonplace after postmodernist writing. It's normal for media to reference other media, and it's even not too unusual for media to reference a meme. Perhaps you can source this back to that, where there's this close proximity to this rising internet cultural concept and the existence of media having to keep up with it. A lot of people are saying this is a bellwether for the fate of franchise movies, and I don't want to be too overblown about this, like there might be some movement after this, but I am wondering if the proximity between corporate ownership and public ownership and what comes from that, because postmodernism has already brought the two closer between the audience and media. I have to wonder if the proximity between the two entities will get even closer after this. And I guess that's the point my rambling was leading to, juggling the possibilities of what this could mean. But please, comment and tell me what you think, even if it's on the level of just, did you like the movie? I'd love to hear. What do you think this means for Hollywood, or dare I say media, if it even spans that far? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But regardless, thank you so much for devoting any time watching a video of mine. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Take care.